Look at this, a special edition, not really, not a full edition of Seminole Headlines, but we did not want to ignore those of you who watched yesterday's Seminole Headlines with Ira and Corey and myself, and were kind enough to do so and spend time with that and donate and help out and contribute. And I said at the outset yesterday, we had so many questions. There was just no way to get to everybody, but we were contacted afterwards and told by Ben, our producer, hey, man, there's some guys in here really kind trying to help out. And so we did not want to ignore you and ignore those questions. And so here we are. We're going to get to them right now and make sure we get caught up with everybody. So,
and did you, Jeff, real quick, I don't know if we didn't make an announcement on the show yesterday that we had recorded early.
No, we did not. So people thought it was live and it wasn't. So that was the biggest issue.
Yeah, and that's our fault, and I apologize for that. But that's why we're here now. We're going to make it right. Okay, we're going to do the right thing.
But we're not live now either, gang. So if you're in the chat now, this isn't live either.
Yeah, don't do it again. So we have to come back tomorrow.
I'm not going to do this every day.
Yeah, right.
This also is not live. Yes,
this is definitely not live. But here we are. Comments, questions. This is what it looks like. The Treasure Coast Knoll just decided to give some money, and the number was 13. I get it. No comment, but there it was. Perkins said, 1999, thank you so much. No rock left unbroken. Fund the exit. Fund the exit.
That's well said, because they make those rocks for every game with the logo of the opponent. And I always wonder, if you don't win the game, what do they do with the rock? But they all got broke this year, so you don't.
Every one of them, Ira. Yeah. Every one of them got broken. It's funny. Johnny.
Yeah, do they keep them in a closet or something?
I don't know.
Like the Jacksonville State one? Not to bring up bad times, but is that somewhere? That's got to be somewhere.
By the way, I know the man who made the hammer.
Okay.
I never told you guys that. I actually know him, and I think that's really, really cool. And it's. I wondered, is it heavy? He said it's very heavy. It's not. That's why you see.
You can tell those are big dudes that struggle sometimes with it.
Yeah. Could he make us a hammer?
I bet he could. I think he could. He's an artist. I mean, he can do a lot. He can do a lot. So I wonder. We need a Seminole Headlines hammer.
Yeah,
it wouldn't hurt. I mean, have you ever like been mad about having a hammer? I mean, there's nothing down to. I mean, it would be cool to have a big Seminole Headlines hammer.
Sometimes I just go stand in the garage and hold a hammer.
Yeah, well, that's a good image.
Are you clothed in those moments?
Yeah.
So Johnny Zone Bringgarner wrote, I'm an FSU law grad here. Has anyone sought copies of CCTV videos from the hotels where the committee was staying to identify every visitor of every committee member during their stay?
Where were they, by the way? Were they in Texas? Is that where they meet? Okay.
Great.
So, hey, Texas. Close to Sarkeesian, maybe.
Yeah.
Man. Mark said, I hate the argument. If these other teams didn't have their starting QB, we would be having the same conversation about them. Bama, without Milroe, has maybe 3 losses, which proves FSU has the better team.
What's crazy is that they played South Florida without Milroe. They decided after the Texas game, we're going to give our other guys a chance. They just benched him. And that offense was a joke. That offense, they almost lost to South Florida. But again, that wasn't, pointed out at all. Didn't matter.
Didn't count. Apparently, it was 3-3 at halftime of that game, ladies and gentlemen. 3-3 was the score of that game.
And Louisville's better than South Florida.
Yes.
By the way, I don't know if you guys saw it on. I guess Desmond Howard was on a show yesterday, and ESPN.
Yeah, and he said it out loud.
And he said I quote him as saying, the seeds were planted for weeks that we had to get an SEC team in, a one-loss SEC team in. And I was like, yeah, Desmond, who was planting the seeds? I mean, and there were a few times during the last few weeks where he stood up for Florida State at least once or twice, and people have questioned his motivations. Maybe he just wanted Michigan to get Florida State. But, I mean, you're kind of calling out your own. I mean, you're not kind of. You're pointing directly at your coworkers.
Well, I'm just surprised because I will say, I mean, I don't know Desmond's motivation, but I would say that it's good that he pointed that out and said it and pointed to something we've all listened to very keenly and understood was in play. But I was surprised you didn't have more people push back. Like Booger McFarland did every week. Every week he was like,
so did McElroy until right there at the end.
Yeah, that was weird with McElroy. I mean, like, you want to talk about, you're out here tweeting on behalf of Florida State and the quarterback situation and saying it's akin to when people doubted that you could win because you were quarterback and all these different things. How is it in that final game? What did you think Brock Lynn was going to start the playoff there? I mean, it's very, very strange. He should feel a little sheepish. I mean, a little strange. I don't know. All right, let's get back to these. Nole Fan 03 writes that Governor DeSantis has included in his state budget $1 million for the State University Board of Governors to bring a lawsuit against the College Football Playoff Committee. Yep, we saw that. Saw Rick Scott, saw others all bring this up. We'll see if anything ever happens. Jared writes, the glee watching the talking heads and from rival fans speaks volumes about how scared they really are of us upsetting the apple cart in college football. Thank you, Jared. That was from Jared.
I mean, the thing is about that, Florida State isn't TCU. Florida State isn't Fresno State. Like, Florida State is the apple cart. Florida State is one of the reasons college football is what it is. It has become so popular. That's what's so discouraging about it. Like, there's like, how many blue bloods are in the SEC and the Big Ten total out of those 30 teams? Like 6?
5, 6.
5? I mean, Florida State's a blue blood. None of those other teams in the SEC deserve, a spot at the table more than Florida State. So, again, that's what the apple cart, Florida State should be in the apple cart. Florida State helped build the damn apple cart.
We are the apple cart.
There's your sign.
We are the apple cart.
Instead of the climb.
We are the apple cart. We chant that as we go to the Orange Bowl.
Mark, who's a pillar. 99 bones again, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Let's get right to it. Hit the portal hard, Mike. Build the Death Star, whatever it takes. 2024 needs to be a powerful response.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I was wrong with the Battle's End numbers, but they are very high. They're not as high as I said they were, but they're very high and growing.
Yes.
Because I think people were, it was, again, I don't know how else to say it. It was a call to action. It was because, again, we went into this, all those things that had to be in place, hitting the portal like they did and hitting home runs. Jordan Travis coming back, Verse coming back, Benson, all those guys coming back, Keon. You're like, this is you hope it's not a once-in-a-decade type football team. But it was a perfect storm of all these really good players, all these older players, all these star players, all coming back to chase a common goal. And then that common goal was taken from them. Well, then you don't want to just slip back down to 8 wins.
Got good news. I got good news. I would just say this. I think that what we're seeing initially here, and I know that our fans, that the followers of this show and my show and Wake Up Warchant and that read everything Ira writes on warchant.com and all the stuff are very concerned because in the last 24 hours they had their hearts broken, and then you got players tweeting things and a couple players going in the portal, and then you got a high profile player like Patrick Payton saying he intends to go in the portal, and they feel like everything is falling apart all around them. And I would just tell those fans, and I'll say it later today on my show, everything's going to be all right, guys. Florida State is finally back in a position of being a really, really highly desirable place to play football. There are people all around the country who would love to be a part of what Mike Norvell and his staff have built. Moreover, love to be a part of what they've proven they can do for a young man's career who transfers in. I mean, we've seen now a multitude of success, and those success stories resonate throughout college football. Players pay attention. They pay attention to collectives that actually do what they say they're going to do and make payments. And they pay attention to the development of players and where those players get drafted. And Florida State's about to have a slew of them get drafted. And Florida State and that committee, that collective, the Battle's End, has done what they said they were going to do. That resonates with people all over from big-time schools that are interested in coming to Florida State. So,
have you changed a little bit, though, on the number?
Well, what I've changed on is what's possible because of how many people seem to have a desire to come here.
Yeah.
And how many of them I think, have a better understanding of what the marketplace looks like and how things are changing in this space. It's not going to be that things just keep going up, 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 and up. You go back to when these collectives were started and NIL began. We all, in one variety or another, expressed concern for the sustainability of something like this. It's one thing in year one to have a billionaire say, yeah, I want my school to win, and I'm going to give $2 million or $10 million because yay team. And I want my team to be left out. And here's $10 million, go get the best players. Okay, well, are you going to do that next year and the year after and the year after? Because I'll tell you something right now, you didn't become a billionaire by being stupid. There is no return on investment other than the emotional gain of seeing your team win. If you do that, if you don't have a sustainable model, if you're just throwing money at the problem. So we're now going into a couple years in and people realize you can't do that. There has to be a budget. There has to be a way of doing business. These have to be realistic projections. You can't reset the market because a kid says he's worth $800,000 when that's not what anybody else would pay him. We're starting to get a little bit more organized. And I will say the Battle's Inn has kind of led the way there. And that's not my opinion. There have been multiple articles written about this nationally. So I think some people have a better understanding, including players elsewhere, of what's real and what's not real and what's possible and not possible. So, Corey, sorry, that's a long-winded way of me saying.
Yeah, it was incredibly long-winded.
Well,
how many people do you think they're going to bring on this roster from the portal?
This is an informative situation. I understand your knee-jerk and don't like to think. But what happens
I just don't want to listen to you for 4 more minutes. Well, just answer the question. I get it. I get how it works.
What happens in that situation is if you have a bunch of people that want to come in and they have a realistic understanding of what they can get, then, yeah, the number will go up. I can't guess how many of those people have that understanding. I don't know. I mean, what?
You guessed last week. You said 3 to 5 last week. Why could you guess last week and not this week?
No.
I'm saying, do you think it will be more?
That wasn't a guess.
But okay, great. But now let's go ahead and hypothetically, I'm of the opinion they need to reload and not just pieces here and there. Yeah. And I don't mean 30, but I don't mean 3 because they're losing their entire starting defense. And I don't know that their backups are going to be good enough to replicate anything close to what they just had. Anything close. But they can in the portal. And so that's why I will continue to say 8 to 12, 10 to 12, big-time pieces can come to Florida State and make this a contender again next year, which I think is pivotal to stay in the conversation after the crap that just got pulled on you. Ira, you talk.
I think part of it's going to depend on what they can get a quarterback. If they get a quarterback that they feel like they can win with, to me now that changes your approach. Because if you go into this offseason and you don't feel great at quarterback, does it make sense to spend a lot of money on receivers and linebackers? But I mean, you want to be good, but I don't know how crazy you go with it if you don't have the right quarterback. So to me, I think that would be a big part of the equation.
What about running back?
I mean, I think they're going to be in the. I think, but yeah, I mean, you got
They're getting some guys too, though, in the recruiting class, and those guys can play quicker.
Yeah, but that's a good example though, where Florida State's going to be attractive. Running backs in this offense have done well, and to Jeff's point, there may be players who it's more important to them to get in the right system than it is to just try to get the top dollar.
Get an extra $50,000.
Right.
Yeah.
And Corey, you and I are teasing each other, but listen, honestly, I think it's not as easy as just saying like they should get 14 guys. There are a lot of things that have to happen.
Oh, understood, man. I know it's not just we got roster spots come on board. I'm just saying you looking at this roster from a fan's perspective, not any insider perspective.
Yeah.
I think it has to be improved greatly. Not just a few pieces.
I agree with what Ira just said, though. I would start with the quarterback.
Yes, quarterback dictates it all. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have a guy that's going to help you get into the playoff or, guarantee that you have a chance to win the ACC, why are you going to go spend money on an elite running back or receiver? You wouldn't. Right. Because you've got a bunch of guys that you like already within the system that are going to be getting playing time and emerging and growing and all of that. So I think it starts there, and then all of a sudden you can start answering the other questions because that's also, let's be honest, I mean, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get a really good quarterback.
Yeah.
But to Corey's point, I think, which is fair, and I think everybody's come to this conclusion that this injustice did incite the fan base, and we don't know what the actual dollars are, but the Battle's End is getting a lot of contributions right now, and that obviously can change what's.
Well, it changes the dynamic. Of course, it does. Absolutely. So Mark just wanted us to build the Death Star. Hopefully, it happens. John Daniel Fields writes, "Nothing. Here's $10, guys."
There we go. Those are the best.
Yeah. Kerry writes, is it just me or did anyone else notice the ACC commissioner not very happy face when he gave Norvell the championship trophy?
It was raining on the field. It was raining and kind of cold, so maybe that had something to do with that. I think more than that, people have noticed how he's essentially ghosted college football since that happened. I have not seen him he made one statement. He has not been in front of any cameras. He was not politicking. Greg Sankey has an open chair on Feinbaum and an open chair on game day where he can go and sit anytime he wants and stump and make his case. And Jim Phillips, they might not even know who he was if he walked on set. They literally might not. Who is this guy? Get him out of here. He let the conference down. And he let Florida State down in a pretty fantastic way.
Guys, I wanted to take a real wait and see approach. You guys know me.
Yes,
I'm a little bit more slow to react.
Measured, yeah.
So when we sat there and he told us about the gated communities 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, all right, let's give him some time. I don't love this. I don't love this. Let's give it a little time. I started to think it's been a disappointment.
It's not going to work out?
Yeah. I started to think that Jim Phillips.
Iris, slow down. Slow down. What are you doing making these rash
You're
judgments
getting Corey
like this?
Clark-like reactionaries. Yeah. Settle down.
Calm it down. Give him a few more years.
I remember you came on the show, Ira, after the whole gated community speech, and I could barely get the first sentence out before we started laughing.
Yeah.
It was the softest, sorriest, desperate, most – I'm still saddened by it.
I mean, I remember sitting in that conference room just looking around. It was one of those moments where you just start looking around at everybody else. Are we here? Are we hearing this?
What is happening?
Is this real?
Anyway,
it was.
I'd like to know I'd like to hear, maybe we'll even zoom in on Dave Doran when he does his press conference for his bowl. I'd legitimately like, because we don't like him necessarily as a person. He doesn't seem like a very likable dude.
We respect him, but
we absolutely respect what he's done with that program. But like to hear what he thinks of his AD in that room, letting that happen, like what he must think of that situation, because he can't be happy about it. If Florida State and Clemson leave, all of a sudden NC State's the king of the pack in the ACC, and his AD just made the whole conference irrelevant.
The entire conference, even those that hold great animosity towards Florida State, are looking at Jim going,
well, and then Boo Corrigan, too. Boo Corrigan was in the room. He's the AD, and he's the committee chair.
He can go to hell.
Yeah.
Khalil writes, can somebody go remind Greg McElroy that he was ass versus Texas and Alabama found a way to win, so it's very possible to overcome mediocre quarterback play. Well, I mean, Khalil, that's funny and true.
Yes. It is true.
But McElroy, up until the very end, had our back.
Right, yeah, right there till the very tippy tip end. And another thing, like I'd like McElroy to explain. So you're telling me if y'all beat Cam Newton when y'all hold that 28-3 lead or whatever it was, and no, that was the Falcons. But they had a big lead against Cam Newton and blew it. And he got knocked out of that game, and A.J. McCarron came in. And if A.J. McCarron had played well and won that game, you're telling me you don't think Alabama deserved a spot in the playoff because A.J. McCarron was going to be the quarterback? And again, I know they weren't going to the playoff anyway, but that's, again, was A.J. McCarron so bad that Alabama just wouldn't have belonged in the game against Notre Dame?
The problem we keep getting into is we're trying to apply logic to
and honestly, I'm sorry I do that because we know that's not why Florida State.
That's not why they did it.
It was a scam. It was a scam. They were going to find something.
Yeah.
But I would like them to just at least answer that. Because we know it's a scam. We know it's stupid. And I want to hear their real explanation.
Lord Boo. Tip of the
Boo
cap.
Corrigan.
Good tip of the cap to Lord Boo, because he wrote, hey, guys, I'm Trey Benson's brother. I've been listening since the start of last season. Just never said anything. Thank you, guys, for all that you've done. This team will always be remembered. Go Noles.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you, Lord.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's cool, nice. Lord, I guess that's true. We're going to take your word for it there, man. That's awesome.
I mean, I hope you are Trey Benson's brother and you didn't make that up. If you are, either way, thank you very much.
I also hope he missed the episode where Corey was lobbying for Rodney Hill.
Hey, man, why you got to bring up old stuff?
I'm just saying,
And by the way, that's another development and I'm not trying to kill Rodney Hill, but that's another development where you're like, okay, that didn't quite look like I thought it was going to look this year, and the portal is open. Not for him to leave, but he's not ready to. I thought he would be ready to take over the reins.
I think Rodney's going to be fine, buddy. He's going to be
It's
fine.
hard. I think we need to not judge any of these backs by what happened with that offensive line this year. I don't know what happened with that offensive line this year.
Wasn't good, Ira.
It wasn't. And so
it wasn't good.
So I think that's
wasn't good.
But you didn't let me finish my point. I thought we would have seen enough in 2023 from Rodney Hill to think, okay, because I was in love with the kid, that he's going to be the bona fide, unquestioned starter going into 2024 if Benson and Toafili leave. Well, we don't think that now. We didn't see enough from them to know. That was.
I keep going back to the offensive line. I think they've got good backs. They've got good backs coming in, good backs coming back. They're fine. They got to get better up front. Period.
And by the way, Trey ran his ass off towards the second half of the season, and especially when Jordan Travis went out. Trey he finished with 14 touchdowns. He had a really nice year.
Yeah, he was really, really good. He just, early on it was a little slow. But again, it was all the whole offense, the whole running game.
Last one here, boys. Nothing made me smile more than EJ going off the way that he did for FSU. Also, can we talk about how bad the Big Ten is? How do they escape criticism? That was a second double down there from Khalil. I agree. I think the Big Ten's garbage this year. I don't think Penn State's good, guys. And I bring up Penn State because people kept using that as good wins for Ohio State and Michigan. I'm like, I don't think so. I think Penn State would lose to several teams in this. Penn State would lose to Clemson, Florida State, perhaps 2 or 3 other teams. They'd lose 2 or 3 games against an SEC schedule. They did lose the 2 games against the only 2 good teams they played, or decent teams they played this year in the Big Ten. So, no, man, that team is not real good.
The only thing that anybody was hanging their hat to in that conference was Ohio State's win against Notre Dame. And
Louisville smoked Notre Dame.
And that was
Duke had it beaten the whole damn thing. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I will say this. Joe Tessitore, you can go watch his speech. He spoke at the Tallahassee Quarterback Club.
It got a little testy.
Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there, you got a lot of questions about the committee and all that. He at least was honest, or I thought he was pretty honest. One thing he said, he thought that where the committee got it wrong was they applied the old rules for Michigan and Washington for whatever reason, and never included them in the other discussion about best. That never even applied to Michigan and Washington. It only applied to Florida State and the SEC schools. And I think that's true. For whatever reason, those 2 were exempt.
Well, because Michigan had the great J.J. McCarthy, that you can't. He's not hurt, Ira. He's healthy. So it also, imagine Florida State winning a game over the 3rd best team in the ACC, which maybe they just did, by running the ball every play for the last 2.5 quarters. But Penn State's a top 10 team, and they just. They won 17-6 or 12. I mean, that was just such a stupid game. The Penn State-Ohio State game was such a gross game. But it's Michigan-Ohio State. And Ohio State being undefeated gave Michigan the win they needed to not even be questioned, even though their head coach was suspended twice for cheating.
In reality, the applying of best in the conversation really needed to be pointed at Michigan. I feel like Washington had enough data points to get by with it, but good Lord, why were we assuming Michigan? There were no wins. There were no wins that you're like, that's a great win. None.
Well, the whole season,
Ohio State win at the end.
Yeah, listen, the whole season it was, well, we're going to find out when they play Ohio State and Penn State. Well, what did we find out? But it never came back to, nobody asked that question. Anyway,
so
it's
bottom line is this, guys. We appreciate you contributing, of course, and we appreciate all of those you that watched yesterday and just had questions that we never got to, and those on social media who did the same. It's a crazy time. It's an emotional time. There are a lot of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of queries, a lot of anger.
Let's get in all those Facebook questions. How many we got left?
Do that.
68?
If you and Ira want to host that one,
let's do that. What are we going to call this? Seminole Headlines Extra?
Yeah,
it's not a bad extra.
Part 2. It's extra. But thanks to everybody, and we appreciate you. And we wanted to sit down real quick and answer these questions. So,
and we might have a coach speak coming soon. So,
that's tomorrow. Yeah, Coach speak coming soon. So that's good. I look forward to it. Peace.